Yeah, what's fun is how many people are tracking this day by day. I mean, that's one of the unique things of this process. And I think there's a lot of intrigue. You listen to the coverage over the last couple of days, and you know it's going to be a close one.
There's no avoiding a tracker if you're into this sort of thing, and you see that it could be a very close vote. So.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to MetsXMFanZone Live Podcast. We are here to announce the MLB Hall of Fame.
Of America, it's my honor to announce the results of the 2023 BBWAA Hall of Fame election. I'd like to thank Mark Moran of Ernst & Young and Mike DeLisi for their assistance in certifying the final results. And of course, we want to thank the voting members of the BBWAA for their participation. This year's ballot featured 28 candidates with 14 newcomers joining 14 holdovers from the 2022 ballot. In arriving at their individual decisions, the electors took into consideration the following voting criteria: the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contribution to the team or teams for which he played. Tonight, we are pleased to announce the addition of one new member to the Hall of Fame fraternity who will be honored alongside Fred McGriff at the induction ceremony on July 23rd at the Clark Sports Center here in Cooperstown. A two-way superstar playing 17 seasons for the Phillies, Cardinals, Reds, and Blue Jays, today Scott Rowland becomes a member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He burst onto the scene as the 1997 National League Rookie of the Year and would go on to win 8 Gold Glove Awards and make 7 All-Star teams. A lifetime .281 hitter and 2002 National League Silver Slugger, he clubbed 316 home runs with a career OPS of .855. Among third basemen, the Indiana native ranks in the top 10 for wins above replacement, while defensively only Brooks Robinson, Mike Schmidt, and Nolan Arenado have won more Gold Gloves than he did at the hot corner. He batted .421 in the 2006 Fall Classic, helping the St. Louis Cardinals to a World Series title. Scott, welcome to Cooperstown. Brian?
Wow, so the suspense was there. I didn't know. I never asked. I don't want to know. And when you said, even when you said we're welcoming one in, I wasn't sure who it might be because, Todd Helton was tracking very well, too. This feels like great news. It's like the winter meetings with Fred McGriff getting in. We wanted to get somebody into the Hall of Fame. It makes sense this year. And now Scott Rowland gets in.
Yeah, I mean, he's so deserving. He had such an incredible career on both sides of the ball, offensive, defensively, base running. He's really one of the greatest third basemen that's ever played the game. And close vote for everybody, but a great result tonight.
And there's old school reasons, there's new school reasons. I love it. So this summer, we're looking back, because we're just getting out of the pandemic still, but we're looking at July 23rd, big summer ceremony at the Clark Center, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the 23rd is obviously the induction day, but it's a 4-day celebration, and it goes on all summer long here in Cooperstown, where we're going to celebrate both Fred and Scott. They both deserve it. They've earned their plaques on these walls, and we're just excited to get people up here visiting Cooperstown and seeing these guys in their rightful home.
They can come up here now in the snow. It's up here right now. Josh, thank you so much. Great result. Greg, how about that? Scott Rowland to be inducted this summer.
I understand why the writers don't vote anyone in some years. It's happened many times. But this show is so much more fun when someone is. It really is. BK, Josh, excellent work. Great news. Scott Rowland, newly elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame by the writers. Scott, a terrific two-way player. Tom did a great breakdown leading up to the big moment at 6 p.m. Eastern. But what do you think of the news? Rowland's in.
Well, he was rolling. You could tell that he was getting a lot of momentum. Look, I talked earlier, and I'm going to ask him when we get a chance to talk with him about his barehand play. It seems like every Hall of Famer has a signature play, signature moment. I mean, when I think back at him and I see him play, that stands out. Now, I know he could hit. He had great range. He did all the things. He's not in the Hall of Fame without all those other things. But his barehand play on a ground ball, a roller, was second to none. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love that image. I can still see that in my head, but I think about him as an all-around player as well. I think that's why he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
To be able to combine power hitting, running the bases, and defense together at the position of third base. Very few have done that. I mean, listen, he's one of the top 10 third basemen of all time. But when you look at the all-around play, he's probably even higher than that. And I think that's why he's a Hall of Famer. You know, he had some injuries throughout his career, but again, we're talking about someone who was 245 pounds.
Yeah.
Playing third base as athletically as he did. He's kind of a one-of-a-kind guy at that position.
Yeah, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He made it. I imagine we'll have a graphic that'll spell all this out because there's a lot to digest. He made it by 5 votes. Todd Helton fell short by 11 votes. No player who still had eligibility left has ever come that close with the writers and not made it. And when you look at those are the numbers, okay? But they all took significant jumps. Roland from 63 to 76. Helton from 52 to 72. Wagner from 51 to 68. Andrew Jones from 41 to 58. That bodes well for him. Sheffield, 40 to 55. Beltran debuts at 46. We thought he'd be around 50%. I think, all things considered, that's also relatively good news for Carlos Beltran. Jeff Kent took a jump, but still only a third thought he was worthy through 9 years, and now less than half think he's worthy. He'll be remanded to a Veterans Committee, and someday he's going to get in because I think his case is solid.
Yep. 1% difference for Alex Rodriguez. Everyone went up. Among those that stayed on the ballot, other than Omar Vizquel, who went down 4 percentage points. You see, you need 10%, make that 5% to stay on, and Torrey Hunter will remain, but you see the players at the bottom of your screen that will not. Bronson Arroyo, R.A. Dickey, John Lackey, Mike Napoli, among those. But again, 5% needed to remain on the ballot. There's a lot to digest. Carlos Beltran at 46.5% to debut. May I remind you that Scott Rowland made history because in 2018, he debuted at 10.2%. So this is the lowest debut vote total for a Hall of Famer for the writers to vote in eventually. So that's a meteoric rise in 6 years.
He did that in 6 years. The previous record had been Duke Snider, 17%. It took him 11 years back in the day when they had 15 years on the ballot. So that is a meteoric rise for Scott Rowland. Now, the ballot was a little more crowded when he first got on with a lot of the PED guys. But this was good news for a lot of guys, especially guys like Helton and Wagner, because they're tracking the way that Rowland did.
Yep.
The patterns of voting have changed considerably over the last decade or so. And something we said at the very beginning of this broadcast, when someone doesn't get a Hall of Fame vote, that does not mean that anyone who has any knowledge thinks they weren't an admirable player. Jacoby Ellsbury had some big years. Jason Worth was a very good player. Matt Cain was a terrific pitcher. Mark Burley, who's still above the cut, I guess.
John Lackey.
But you got guys that didn't get a single vote, but they still had estimable and respectable careers. Nobody should disrespect them. That's not getting a Hall of Fame vote is not a negative. Getting a Hall of Fame vote is a superlative.
I'll tell you what, the takeaway for me, too, is the importance of a manager. Tony La Russa was so impactful with Scott Rowland. The years he played with Tony, being around him, that mindset that Tony La Russa gives a guy, we're playing one inning at a time, do your job, stay within your capabilities, and to have a guy that says, Scott, you're an athletic. You're going to run. You're going to be able to do all these things within your athletic ability. I think that's big to have a manager who recognizes that and lets you go do your thing.
I think the writers now actually are looking for reasons to vote for people. I first started years and years ago, more than 30 years ago. My first 6 years, it was either one or none every single year. The flow has picked up, and I think writers now are looking for reasons to vote for people rather than not to vote for people.
That's good.
The ballot becomes less crowded because next year Adrian Beltre is the only sure thing, and the year after that Ichiro is the only sure thing. There are others for whom you can make a case for or against, but it'll loosen up a little bit, and that also is a plus for some of those that are flirting with election.
That is if Ichiro doesn't come back and play it.
You never know. That is not a sure thing. You're right. But Scott Rowland has just been elected. Lauren, this show is so much more fun, like I said earlier, when the writers do vote in a new Hall of Fame.
Indeed, Greg, and you talked about the quantum leap. I want you to look at this graphic. 10.2% of the vote all the way up to 63.2 a year ago, and now he's the player with the lowest initial vote to be elected by the writers since the return to annual voting in 1966. Wow, as we welcome you back inside. It was you, Joel. It was you. This is the first year you put him on the ballot. You're very important. Tell me your reaction to the news.
So I think Tom Verducci said something very true. I think people are looking for reasons to vote for people as this ballot has gotten less crowded.